Uh, I have a story that's not related to meth, but it is related to losing an object that matters a lot. That being my car.
Losing your car.
So yeah, so I was after I had moved home a few years ago in 2018. I went back to the town I used to live in to visit my ex-girlfriend at the time. And I don't know how I've never told this story really at all. This is a cool story.
You lost your soul.
You lost your soul. Thank you, Lord. This I don't know why I've literally like never told this. I'm
excited.
I think I repressed it because it sucked so much. It sucked so much. Good night, Adamski. Go to bed. So I parked in her car park. It was like a parking lot. There's a bunch of empty spots. She was like, "Yeah, nobody parks there. Nobody uses them. It's the summertime. A lot of tenants have moved out. They're waiting to rent till September." So I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna use this parking spot." Used it for a night. It was fine. Go to sleep. Wake up the next morning. I'm just outside. I'm having a smoke because I used to do that. And I'm just like looking around, and I like look over at my parking spot. I'm like, look, my car's not there, huh? And I'm like, did I park on the street today? And I walked over to the spot I usually park on the street, and I was like, oh, it's not there either. And then I was like,
uh-oh.
I was not panicking because I usually don't panic right away. So I was like, oh, yeah.
Just like something's going on. I must have forgotten.
So I just looked around every parking spot. I looked in front of the building, looked behind the building, go back up. I'm like, hey, where's my car? Did you like move it? I was like, you probably didn't, but did you? And she's like, no. What do you mean? And then I go back down. I'm like, okay, it's clearly not here. Who would steal a car that's 20 years old? I have the keys. So like,
right.
So at this point I'm like, fuck. And I'm like, what do I do? What the hell could I do? So I'm like, I guess I just call the city police non-emergency line and report my car stolen.
Yeah, I guess. Did you know your license plate like off heart?
Yeah, of course. And I had just bought this car like 2 months ago. Actually, it was the month before. So this is a month into having a car for the first time.
It's like, oh, that's what having a car is like.
Yeah,
Great.
and while I'm calling the like stolen property like theft line, she's like, I'm gonna find my landlord or the building like the guy who manages the building and see if he saw it or knows what happened. So I'm calling this line. She's talking to the building manager. I haven't even thought about this since it happened because that's how much I hated this.
So repressed.
I'm like remembering it. So I finished calling them. They're talking about, oh, it's probably blah, it's probably this. Maybe the city moved it. You don't know what's going on for sure. You could have gotten towed. And I was like, oh my God, I could have gotten towed. It's a parking lot. Oh. So I finished the call with them. Boom. I'm like, keep the case open, whatever, in case something happens. Boom.
Yeah.
And then she comes back and she's like, so I talked to the building property guy, and he said that there was some construction guys like renting out that spot today. And I was like, oh my God. Just today? And she was like, yeah, they said when they saw your car there, they just immediately called a tow truck. And I remember waking up at like 7 a.m. and hearing beep, beep,
oh
beep.
My God.
And I was so mad. I've never been more mad in my life because I was like, I know private towing companies are so expensive.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, guess we gotta go find a construction worker. So we're walking around. This is like 2 blocks from my house right now, by the way. We're walking around. I'm actually by myself at this point. I'm walking around downtown looking for construction workers. So I find, dude, this is ridiculous. I find construction workers nearby, and I'm like, hey, were you like using this parking lot? And they're like, sacre bleu, porque, and I'm like, oh, I don't speak that. And
that language, that's secondary French. You don't speak that. And
then I'm like, okay, it was this car in this spot, and he was like, yeah, that's my parking spot for the day. We called a tow truck, and I was like, you didn't like talk to couldn't you have like done something else first? Like, there's a ton of empty spots all around. Why didn't you? He's like, who cares? And I was like, fuck. So clearly I can't get mad at this guy. Like, he didn't, like, it's his right. He paid for it, you know?
Sure. Yeah,
so I was just like super dejected and defeated. So we go back to the landlord, and he's like, this is the company that they made me call, and this is where they are. So we get an Uber there after calling the company. He's like, yeah, I got your car in the lot. You're going to have to pay me in cash. And I'm like, this is a fucking scam, isn't it? So we get there, and he's like, I'll drive you to an ATM. And I'm like, you're going to kill me, bro. Like, he's going to be like, actually give me all your money. Yeah. So then he goes, it's $480. Because that's what towing companies are scammers.
That's brutal, yeah, but sure. Yeah.
So he's like, to unlock your boot, your like tires and pull it out of the lots, $480. I was like, bro, are you kidding me? And then he goes, immediately after saying, are you kidding me? He goes, okay, it's $350. My bad.
Just immediately
$130 less. And I'm like, okay, whatever, fine. So I took out $350 from an ATM. Dejectedly handed it over to him, and he was like, you know what, I'll just take the, and he just took like, I think it was $340 because it was all 20s instead of $350. So I was like, dude, this guy just scammed me for all my money, and there's nothing I can do to control it because this is a towing company. I got shaken down by a criminal who called himself a towing company. Well, here's the thing, Lork, all towing companies are criminals. That's a joke. Some of my best friends are tow truck drivers.
Is that true?
No, absolutely not.
So who the hell do you know?
So I have never been more sad. I was so mad at myself. I was like, why didn't I park on the street? Why did I take the word of somebody else about this? Why? Yeah. Why everything? So I called the police hotline, whatever, and I'm like, I'm just a dumb fuck, sorry, and I, canceled the thing. And so I'm parking on the street for sure all the time now, moving my car every 3 hours so I don't get a ticket. I was gonna go home that day, but I ended up having to stay the whole day, and it was like 7 p.m. by the time this all got resolved. And then I was just like, I'm just gonna stay another day because I'm not going home. I'm so upset. I'm gonna be like triggered on the highway and drive off of it. And
yeah, I mean, probably they say don't drive angry.
Yeah, so I didn't, and then I just smoked a bunch of weed to cope with it, and it was fine. And then 2 days after I got home, 2 days later, going down a hill, my brakes completely failed, and I almost drove through a red light and killed myself. So that's
the front.
That's my car story. That's my car story.